The training facility floated in space like a giant metal wheel. Through its windows, stars stretched endlessly in all directions. Inside, hundreds of young aliens walked through the wide hallways. Some had scales. Some had fur. Others had skin that glowed in the dark. They were all here to learn how to fight, how to survive, and how to work with other species. Instructor Vrolmuth stood in Training Room 7 with his 8 arms crossed. His body looked like it was made of purple glass, and light bounced off his skin in strange patterns. He was tall, very tall. Even the biggest students had to look up at him. He had been teaching at this facility for 30 years. He had seen thousands of students. But he had never seen anything like the humans. Yuna walked into the training room with 10 small humans following behind her. They looked tiny compared to the other students. The smallest one, a girl named Minji, was only 6 years old. She held onto Yuna's hand tightly. The tallest was a boy named Jiho. He was 9, but he still only reached Yuna's shoulder. The other instructors had warned Vrolmuth about the humans. They said humans did strange things. They said humans stayed in groups even when they didn't need to. They said humans touched each other all the time for no reason. Vrolmuth didn't understand it, but he was a professional. He would teach them just like any other students. "Line up," Vrolmuth said. His voice was deep and loud. It echoed off the metal walls. The 10 children moved quickly. They formed a straight line, standing shoulder to shoulder. Yuna stood at the end of the line. She smiled at Vrolmuth, but he could see worry in her eyes. "You are late," Vrolmuth said. "I'm sorry," Yuna replied. Seojin needed help with his suit. She pointed to a small boy with dark hair. He looked down at his feet, his face turning red. Vrolmuth made a sound like breaking glass. It was how his species showed confusion. Why does the juvenile need help? Is he defective? "He's 6 years old," Yuna said carefully. "He's still learning. 6 cycles?" Vrolmuth asked. "Why is he here?" "He should still be in a growth chamber." "Humans don't use growth chambers," Yuna explained. This was not the first time she'd had this conversation. "We raise our children together. They learn by being with adults and older children." Vrolmuth stared at her. His species laid eggs and left them to hatch alone. The young ones grew up in groups, all the same age, raised by computers and automated systems. Parents never met their children. It was efficient. It was logical. This human method seemed backward and wasteful. "Very well," Vrolmuth said. "Today we practice basic combat movements. Watch and copy." For the next hour, Vrolmuth showed them moves. How to punch. How to block. How to dodge. The other alien students picked up the moves quickly. Most of them had hard shells or thick skin. They could take hits without much pain. The human children struggled. Their bodies were soft. They got tired quickly. Sweat dripped down their faces. But they kept trying. Vrolmuth noticed something odd. Whenever one of the small humans made a mistake, the others would look at that child with concern. Sometimes they would whisper encouragement. Once, when little Kiwan fell down, 2 other children helped him up before Vrolmuth could even say anything. "No helping," Vrolmuth shouted. "Each student must succeed alone." The children looked confused. They looked at Yuna. She nodded at them gently, and they went back to their positions. But Vrolmuth could see they didn't like it. During a water break, Vrolmuth watched the humans carefully. They all sat together in a tight circle. The older children gave water to the younger ones first. Jiho, the oldest boy, made sure everyone drank before he took a sip. Nari, a quiet girl with long black hair, wiped sweat from Minji's forehead with a cloth. They touched constantly. A hand on the shoulder. A pat on the back. Holding hands, other species didn't do this. Other young ones sat separately, each one focused on their own recovery. The humans acted like they were all connected somehow. "Why do they cluster?" Vrolmuth asked another instructor, a being made of flowing water who taught advanced tactics. "The humans always do this," the water instructor said. "They call it bonding." "I don't understand it either. Is the adult female their parent?" Vrolmuth asked. "No, she is called a caretaker." The human government sent her to watch over them. Why do juveniles need watching? Are they not mature enough to be here? The water instructor made a gurgling sound that meant uncertainty. Humans measure maturity differently than we do. They say these young ones are here to learn social skills, not just combat skills. Vralmoth didn't like it. Social skills were not his concern. He taught combat. He taught survival. Feelings and friendships were not part of the program. Back to training, he called out. The children jumped to their feet. Even tired, even sore, they moved back into formation. Yuna stood up too, slower than the children. Vralmoth noticed she was limping slightly. You, he said, pointing at Yuna, you will run the obstacle course. Yuna blinked. Sir, I'm not a student. I'm a supervisor. You are juvenile-sized, Vralmoth said. In my assessment, you are a late-developing juvenile. You will train with the others. I'm 24 years old, Yuna said, her voice firm but respectful. I'm an adult. Humans are fully grown by age 18. Vralmoth didn't believe her. She was too small. Most adult species in the coalition stood 7 to 8 feet tall. This human female was barely 5.5 feet. She had to be a juvenile. You will run the course, he repeated. I do not accept excuses. Yuna looked at the 10 children. They were watching her with wide eyes. She could see their worry. She didn't want to argue in front of them. She didn't want them to think disrespecting an instructor was acceptable. Yes, sir, she said quietly. The obstacle course stretched across the entire training room. Walls to climb. Gaps to jump. Ropes to swing from. Balance beams. Spinning platforms. It was designed to test speed, strength, and coordination. Most students completed it in 3 to 4 minutes. Yuna stepped up to the starting line. The 10 children pressed against the safety barrier watching. She could hear them whispering to each other. Go, Yuna! Tian called out. You can do it! Hannah added. Vralmoth made that glass-breaking sound again. Silence! Observers do not encourage participants. The children went quiet immediately, but their eyes stayed locked on Yuna. The buzzer sounded. Yuna started running. She climbed the first wall, her arms shaking with effort. She jumped across the gap, landing hard but staying on her feet. She grabbed the rope and swung across the pit. She was doing well. Not fast, but steady. Then she reached the spinning platforms. They were circular discs that rotated slowly. She had to jump from one to the next, timing her movements perfectly. Yuna jumped to the first one, then the second. On the third jump, her foot landed on the edge of the platform instead of the center. Her ankle twisted. Her balance failed. Yuna fell. Yuna hit the training mat with a heavy thud. The mat was designed to soften falls, but it still knocked the air from her lungs. She landed on her side, her right knee taking most of the impact. Pain shot through her leg, sharp and hot. She gasped and stayed down for a moment, trying to breathe. The training room went completely silent. From her position on the mat, Yuna could see Instructor Vralmoth approaching. All 8 of his arms moved as he walked, making him look even bigger and more threatening. His crystalline face showed no emotion. His heavy footsteps echoed through the room, each one sounding like a hammer on metal. Unacceptable, Vralmoth's voice boomed across the room. You failed at the most basic level. This course is designed for first-cycle juveniles. A mature being should complete it without error. Yuna tried to push herself up. Her knee screamed in protest. She got to her hands and one knee, but the other leg wouldn't support her weight yet. She needed a moment. Just one moment to let the pain fade, but Vralmoth didn't give her that moment. Stand up, he commanded, moving closer. Weakness is not tolerated in coalition training. Pain is temporary. Failure is a choice. He loomed over her now, all 8 arms spread wide. To his species, this was a teaching posture. It made students focus and work harder. But to human eyes, it looked like an attack position. Yuna looked up at the massive instructor. She wasn't afraid, but she was hurt and tired. She opened her mouth to explain that she just needed a second to recover. She never got the chance to speak. A sound filled the training room. It was unlike anything Vralmuth had ever heard. It was a mix of high-pitched warning cries and low, guttural growls. It came from 10 small throats all at once. The human children moved as one unit. They didn't walk or jog. They ran at full speed. Jiho vaulted over the safety barrier first. The others followed immediately. Doyan was right behind him. Then Taiyang. Then the girls, Suji, Nari, Yunji, and Hana, their faces fierce and determined. Even tiny Minji climbed under the barrier, her small legs pumping as fast as they could go. Seojun and Kiwon brought up the rear, but they didn't hesitate. In less than 3 seconds. All 10 children had crossed the training room and positioned themselves between Yuna and Instructor Vralmuth. They formed a wall. A shield. A barrier of small bodies. Jiho stood in the center, his arms stretched wide to cover as much space as possible. His 9-year-old body was shaking, but he didn't move back. Doyan and Taeyang flanked him, their small fists clenched tight. The girls filled the spaces between them, their bodies pressed close together. Seojin and Kiwon stood at the edges, their legs planted firm despite their obvious fear, and then they made sounds that froze every being in the training room. Jiho pulled his lips back, showing his small white teeth. A deep growl came from his chest. It wasn't loud, but it was filled with warning. Doyan hissed like a threatened animal. His eyes were locked on Vralmuth and didn't blink. Taeyang's growl was higher-pitched, but no less threatening. Suji made a sound halfway between a scream and a snarl. Her body was tense, ready to spring forward. Nari, usually so quiet, bared her teeth and produced a low, continuous growl that didn't stop. Yunji's hands were up in front of her, fingers curved like claws. She snapped her teeth together, the click echoing in the silence. Hana's sound was almost a bark. Sharp and sudden, even little Minji, only 6 years old, made a hissing, spitting sound and showed her tiny teeth. Seojin was crying, tears running down his face. But he growled anyway. Kiwon, the smallest boy, made himself look as big as possible, his arms stretched out, his voice producing a continuous threatening sound. Not one of them touched Vralmuth. They didn't attack. They didn't strike. But the message was crystal clear. They were warning him. They were telling him to stay back. They were protecting their pack member from a perceived threat. Vralmuth stood frozen. In 30 years of teaching, he had never experienced this. Juveniles simply did not challenge instructors. It violated every protocol. It broke fundamental rules of the coalition training structure. Yet here were 10 tiny humans, making threatening displays at a being who could crush any one of them with a single arm. The other students in the room pressed themselves against the walls. Several species had prey instincts, and those instincts were screaming danger. The human children looked feral, wild, unpredictable. Behind the wall of children, Yuna finally processed what was happening. Horror and pride warred in her chest. Horror because this would have serious consequences. Pride because these children loved her enough to defend her against impossible odds. "Kids," she said softly. "It's okay. I'm okay." None of the children moved. They didn't take their eyes off Vralmuth. "Jiho," Yuna said, her voice stronger now. "Jiho, look at me." The 9-year-old boy's head turned slightly, just enough to see her from the corner of his eye. He didn't turn his back on the threat. "I'm not hurt badly," Yuna said. "It was just a fall. The instructor wasn't going to hurt me. He was teaching. You need to stand down." "He was yelling at you," Jiho said, his voice rough with emotion. "You were hurt and he was yelling?" "That's how he teaches," Yuna explained. She slowly got to her feet, testing her knee. It hurt, but it would hold her weight. Different species teach differently. "He wasn't attacking me." "Looked like attacking," Sugi said without turning around. Her body was still rigid, still ready to fight. Vralmuth finally found his voice. "This is unacceptable behavior. They threatened an instructor. They must be removed from the facility immediately." "They didn't threaten you," Yuna said quickly. She limped forward, placing her hands on Jiho's shoulders. "They warned you." "There's a difference." "There is no difference," Vralmuth said. His voice had changed. It was no longer the booming instructor voice. It was quieter but harder, angry. They displayed aggression toward authority. This violates Coalition Code Section 12, Paragraph 7. They are dangerous. They're children, Yuna said. They're protective children who thought their caretaker was in danger. Why would juveniles protect an adult? Vralmuth demanded. Adults protect juveniles. That is the natural order. Not for humans, Yuna said softly. For humans, we protect each other. Age doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter. If you're pack, we protect you. Pack? Vralmuth repeated the word like it tasted strange. What is pack? Before Yuna could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the facility. Red lights flashed on the walls. The training room doors slid open and 6 security officers rushed in. They were a mixed species team. All heavily armed. The human children immediately pressed closer together, forming a tighter circle around Yuna. Their growling intensified. Stand down! The lead security officer commanded. She was a Vexali, a species with blue skin and 4 eyes. All students will return to their quarters immediately. The alien students scrambled to obey, rushing out of the training room. Within seconds, only the humans, Yuna, Vralmuth, and the security team remained. Caretaker Yuna, the Vexali officer said. Control your juveniles or we will use force. Yuna's heart hammered in her chest. She knew what force meant. Stun weapons, restraints, fear burned through her body. Listen to me, she said urgently to the children. You need to calm down. Right now, I know you were trying to help me, but this has gone too far. You need to be calm and quiet. Slowly, very slowly, the growling stopped. The children's postures relaxed slightly, though they stayed in formation. Good, Yuna said. Now, one at a time, I want you to step back and stand behind me. Jiho, you first. Jiho hesitated. His whole body was trembling now, not with fear but with adrenaline crash. He took 1 step back, then another. He moved behind Yuna. One by one, the other children followed. Doyan, Taiyang, Suji, Nari, Yunji, Hana, Seojin, Kiwan, finally. Little Minji, who immediately grabbed Yuna's hand. We're going to walk out of here calmly, Yuna said. We're going to go back to our quarters. We're not going to cause any more trouble, okay? 10 small heads nodded. The security team parted to let them through. As the humans walked toward the door, the Vexali officer spoke again. Caretaker Yuna, Ambassador Jinwoo has been notified. There will be an inquiry. Do not leave your quarters. Yuna nodded. She led the children out of the training room, limping with every step. Behind them, Instructor Vralmuth stood in silence, still processing what he had witnessed. The humans had revealed something the Coalition had never seen before, and the galaxy would never be the same. The human quarters on the training facility were small but comfortable. 11 beds lined the walls, 10 small ones for the children and 1 larger one for Yuna. Right now, all 10 children were crowded onto Yuna's bed, pressed against her like they were trying to make sure she was really there and really safe. Minji hadn't let go of Yuna's hand since they left the training room. Xiaojun was crying quietly into Yuna's shoulder. Even Jiho, who always tried to be brave, had his head pressed against her arm. None of them spoke. They just stayed close. Yuna's heart ached. She knew this would have consequences. She knew the inquiry would be harsh. But looking at these 10 small faces, she couldn't find it in herself to be angry at them. They had done what humans do. They had protected their pack. A knock on the door made everyone jump. Come in, Yuna called out. The door slid open. A human man in a formal Coalition diplomatic suit stepped inside. He was tall and had silver hair despite only being in his 40s. His face was serious but kind. Behind him came 2 other humans, a woman in a white lab coat and a man in a military uniform. Ambassador Jinwoo, Yuna said, trying to stand. The weight of 10 children made it difficult. Stay seated, Jinwoo said gently. He looked at the pile of children on the bed and something sad passed across his face. Dr. Soman and Commander Yunwoo are here as well. We need to talk about what happened. The woman in the lab coat, Dr. Soman, pulled up a chair. She had warm eyes and moved slowly, like she didn't want to startle the children. Commander Hyun-woo stood by the door, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. "First," Jin-woo said, "how is your knee?" "Just bruised," Yuna replied. "Medical scanned it, nothing broken." "Good. Now, I need you to tell me exactly what happened, everything." Yuna took a deep breath and explained the obstacle course. Her fall. Vralmoth's approach. The children's reaction. She didn't leave anything out. The growling, the teeth, the formation. Everything. When she finished, Jinwoo was quiet for a long moment. "The Coalition Council is furious," he finally said. "They're calling it an attack on an instructor. They want the children removed from the facility immediately and sent back to Earth. Some members are suggesting humans should be banned from Coalition training programs entirely." Yuna felt sick. They weren't attacking. They were defending. "I know that," Jinwoo said. "You know that. Every human knows that. But the Coalition doesn't understand the difference." Dr. Soman leaned forward. "May I speak with the children?" Yuna nodded. "Kids, this is Dr. Soman. She's a scientist who studies different species and how they behave. She wants to ask you some questions. Is that okay?" The children looked at each other. Jiho, as the oldest, spoke for them. "Are we in trouble?" "Yes," Dr. Soman said honestly. "But I'm going to try to help you get out of trouble. I need to understand why you did what you did." "Can you tell me?" Jiho looked down at his hands. Yuna fell. She was hurt. The instructor came toward her and he looked angry. He looked like he was going to hurt her more. "We couldn't let that happen." "Why couldn't you let that happen?" "Doctor," Soman asked gently. "Because she's ours," Doyeon said suddenly. "She takes care of us. She makes sure we eat. She helps us when we're scared. She tucks us in at night." "She's ours and we're hers, like a mother?" Dr. Soman asked. "No," Nari said quietly. "Not like a mother, like Pak?" Dr. Soman pulled out a tablet and started taking notes. "Tell me about Pak." The children looked at each other again. They didn't have to speak to communicate. Something passed between them, some silent agreement. "Pak means you don't leave anyone behind," Jiho said. "Pak means you protect each other. Pak means when one hurts, we all hurt. Pak means I'm not alone," Seojin added, his voice still shaky from crying. "Pak means we're stronger together," Yunji said. "Pak means family, but not blood family," Hannah explained. "Family you choose?" "Pak means I'd fight a monster for them even though I'm scared," Kiwan said. His voice was small but determined. Dr. Soman wrote quickly. "When you saw Instructor, Vralmuth standing over Yuna, what did you think was going to happen?" "We thought he was going to hurt her," Suji said. "He was so big and she was on the ground. It looked like when predators corner prey in the nature videos. We had to stop him," Taeyang added. "We're small, but there's 10 of us. Together we're bigger. Did you want to hurt the instructor?" "Doctor," Soman asked carefully. All 10 children shook their heads. "We just wanted him to back away," Jiho said. "We wanted him to know that if he hurt Yuna, he'd have to go through all of us. Even though he could easily hurt all of you?" Dr. Soman asked. "Didn't matter," Minji said quietly. It was the first time she'd spoken since entering the quarters. "She's Pak. You protect Pak, always." Double quotes. Dr. Soman sat back in her chair. She looked at Ambassador Jinwoo. "This is classic human Pak bonding behavior. It's instinctive. They weren't being aggressive, they were being protective. There's a massive difference." "Explain that to the Coalition," Commander Hyun-woo said from the door. "They don't see a difference. They see juveniles threatening an adult authority figure." "Because they don't understand what Pak means," Dr. Soman said. She stood up and started pacing. "Most species in the Coalition are either solitary or collective. Solitary species raise young independently. Collective species raise young in large communal groups. Humans are neither. We're pack animals. We form small, tight-knit groups with intense emotional bonds." "So?" Hyun-woo asked. "So the Coalition has no framework for understanding this behavior," Dr. Soman explained. "When a solitary species juvenile is threatened, it runs. When a collective species juvenile is threatened, it calls for the group. But when a pack species juvenile sees a pack member threatened, it defends, even against impossible odds. It's not a choice, it's instinct. Ambassador Jinwoo rubbed his temples. The inquiry is tomorrow. The Coalition Council wants answers. What do I tell them? Tell them the truth, Yuna said. Everyone looked at her. She gently moved the children aside so she could stand, despite their protests. Tell them that humans are pack animals. Tell them we bond deeply with our caretakers and with each other. Tell them that what they saw wasn't an attack. It was love. Love? Jinwoo repeated. Yes, Yuna said firmly. These children love me. I love them. When you love someone, you protect them. You stand between them and danger, even when the danger is bigger than you, even when you're scared. That's what love looks like for humans. Dr. Soman nodded enthusiastically. That's perfect. That's exactly what I'll present to the council. Humans don't just fight for duty or survival. We fight for emotional bonds. Our strength comes from our connections. The council will say that's a weakness, Commander Hyunwoo pointed out. They'll say emotional bonds make us unpredictable and dangerous. Maybe, Yuna said, but it's who we are. We can't change it. We wouldn't want to change it. This is what makes us human. The room fell silent. The children huddled together on the bed, watching the adults with wide eyes. Finally, Ambassador Jinwoo spoke. There's something else. Instructor Vralmoth has requested a meeting. He wants to speak with the children. Every adult in the room tensed. Yuna felt the children press closer together. Absolutely not, Yuna said immediately. They're terrified enough already. He specifically requested it, Jinwoo said. And honestly, it might help our case. If he's willing to meet with them, maybe he's trying to understand rather than just punish. Or maybe he wants to intimidate them, Hyunwoo said darkly. I'll be there, Yuna said. The entire time. If he so much as raises his voice, we're leaving. Ambassador Jinwoo nodded. Agreed. The meeting is in 1 hour. I'll have security present as well. Dr. Soman, you should attend too. What do we tell the children? Yuna asked. Dr. Soman knelt down beside the bed. Kids, the instructor wants to talk to you. I know you're scared of him. But sometimes when people do things that hurt each other, talking about it can help. He wants to understand why you did what you did. And maybe you can understand why he did what he did. Would you be willing to try? The children looked at each other again. That silent communication passed between them once more. Will Yuna be there? Jiho asked. The whole time, Dr. Soman promised. Will we get in trouble? Kiwon asked. You're already in trouble, Dr. Soman said gently. But this might help you get out of trouble. We'll do it, Jiho said. The other children nodded agreement. We'll do it together. Pack stays together, Minji added quietly. Ambassador Jinwoo looked at these 10 small humans with something like awe in his eyes. They were facing consequences they didn't fully understand for doing something that felt completely right to them. They were scared, but they weren't backing down. Pack stays together, he repeated softly. Maybe that's exactly what the coalition needs to learn. The meeting room was smaller than the training room, which somehow made it feel more intense. A large table sat in the center with chairs arranged on both sides. Instructor Vralmoth was already there when the humans arrived. He stood near the far wall, his crystalline body catching the overhead lights and throwing rainbow patterns across the room. The children walked in holding hands, forming a chain. Jiho led them, with Yuna's hand firmly in his grip. Minji was at the end, clinging to Yunji's hand with both of hers. They moved as one unit, slow and cautious, their eyes never leaving Vralmoth. Ambassador Jinwoo and Dr. Soman entered behind them. 2 security officers stood by the door, their weapons clearly visible. Commander Hyunwoo had wanted to attend, but they'd decided too many adults would make the room feel even more threatening. Please sit, Vralmoth said. His voice was different, softer. He kept his arms close to his body instead of spread wide. The children didn't sit. They stood in a cluster near Yuna, ready to move if they needed to. Vralmoth noticed their fear. Something shifted in his crystalline features, something that might have been sadness. I want to apologize. Everyone in the room went still. Apologies from instructors were rare. Apologies from Krellian instructors were unheard of. You want to apologize? Yuna repeated, making sure she'd heard correctly. Yes, Ralmoth said. I have spent the last 6 hours reviewing the footage of the incident. I have also spent time researching human behavior and culture. I did not understand what I was seeing. I still do not fully understand. But I recognize that my actions caused fear and distress. He lowered himself slightly, bringing his height down closer to human eye level. It was an awkward position for a Krellian, uncomfortable, but he held it. I was not going to hurt your caretaker, he said, addressing the children directly. In my species, when a student fails, the instructor uses a harsh voice and imposing posture to motivate improvement. It is standard teaching methodology. But I have learned that to human young this appears to be an attack posture. It did look like you were going to hurt her, Jiho said quietly. His voice was steady, but his hand still gripped Yuna's tightly. I understand that now, Ralmoth said. I have never trained humans before. Your species is new to the coalition. I did not account for the differences in how you perceive threat. Dr. Soman stepped forward slightly. Instructor Vralmoth came to me 3 hours ago requesting information about human development and social structures. He wanted to understand what happened. I do not understand, Vralmoth admitted. But I am trying. Suji spoke up, her voice challenging. What don't you understand? Vralmoth's attention focused on the small girl. I do not understand why young ones would defend an adult. I do not understand why you would put yourselves in danger for another being. I do not understand why you stay together constantly. In my species, young are independent from hatching. We do not form attachments. We do not feel loyalty to individuals. We serve the collective, but we do not love. You don't love? Hannah asked, her eyes wide. No, Vralmoth said. My species does not experience emotional bonds. We cooperate because it is logical. We teach because it is our function. But we do not feel affection. The children looked at each other, a mixture of sadness and confusion on their faces. A life without love was incomprehensible to them. That sounds lonely, Nari said softly. Vralmoth tilted his head, a gesture of consideration. I do not know what loneliness is. But when I watched the footage of you defending your caretaker, I felt something. My species does not name this feeling. Perhaps it is closest to what you call fascination. Or envy. You were envious of us? Doyan asked, surprised. Perhaps, Vralmoth said. You are small, weak, vulnerable, yet you stood against a being many times your size because another member of your group was in distress? This is illogical. This is inefficient. This is also remarkable. He moved slightly closer and the children tensed but didn't back away. I have been an instructor for 30 years, Vralmoth continued. I have trained thousands of students from dozens of species. Never have I seen students act with such coordination without prior training. You moved as one. You responded to a perceived threat in less than 3 seconds. Your formation was defensively sound, with larger members in front and vulnerable members protected in the center. No one gave orders. No one hesitated. How? We didn't think about it, Jiho said. We just did it. But how did you know what to do? Vralmoth pressed. How did you know where to stand? How did you know to make threat displays instead of attacking? Because we're pack, Taiyang said, like it was obvious. Pack protects pack. Everyone knows that. I do not know that, Vralmoth said. Explain pack to me. The children looked at Yuna. She nodded encouragement. Yunji spoke up. Pack is the people you would do anything for. The people who would do anything for you? Pack is knowing someone has your back, Kiwan added. Always. Pack is feeling safe even when you're scared because you're not alone, Seojun said. Pack is sharing, Minji said simply. Food, toys, blankets, everything. Pack is when their hurt makes you hurt, Nari explained. When they're sad, you're sad. When they're happy, you're happy. Pack is family you choose, Hannah said. Not the family you're born with, but the family you make. Pack is home, Dorian said quietly. Not a place, people, these people. Rolmoth was silent for a long moment, processing their words. And this caretaker, Yuna, she is your pack? Yes, all 10 children said at once. And you are willing to fight for her? Even knowing you would lose? Yes, they said again. Why? Rolmoth asked. What purpose does it serve to fight a battle you cannot win? It's not about winning, Jiho said. It's about not letting her face danger alone. It's about showing we care. It's about being there. Even if being there means you get hurt too? Rolmoth asked. Especially then, Suji said firmly. Rolmoth made that glass-breaking sound again, but softer this time. This is what Dr. Soman calls love. Yes, Yuna said. She'd been quiet until now, letting the children speak for themselves. This is love. It's not always logical. It's not always safe. But it's real, and it's powerful, and it's what makes us human. Rolmoth turned his attention to her. You are proud of them for threatening an instructor. It wasn't a question, but Yuna answered anyway. Yes, I'm proud of them for being brave, for caring enough to act, for standing together. I wish the situation hadn't happened, but I can't be anything but proud of who they are. They violated protocols, Rolmoth pointed out. They followed their hearts, Yuna countered. Sometimes that's more important. Rolmoth was quiet again, thinking. The children watched him carefully, still holding hands, still ready to move if needed. But their fear had lessened. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't threatening. He was trying to understand. Finally, Rolmoth spoke again. I have a question for you, young ones. Okay, Jiho said cautiously. If the same situation happened again, would you do the same thing? The children didn't hesitate. Yes, they all said. Even knowing there would be consequences? Yes. Even knowing you could be hurt? Yes. Even knowing you could be sent home? Yes. Rolmoth made a sound like wind chimes, high and crystalline. Dr. Summon's eyes widened. She leaned over to Ambassador Jinwoo and whispered, That's Krellian laughter. I've never heard a Krellian laugh before. You are either very brave or very foolish, Rolmoth said to the children. Perhaps you are both. Perhaps that is what makes you human. He straightened up to his full height. The children tensed but held their ground. I do not fully understand Pack, Rolmoth said. I do not think I can understand it, as my species does not form such bonds. But I recognize its value. You are stronger together than you are apart. Your loyalty makes you unpredictable, yes, but it also makes you formidable. He looked at Ambassador Jinwoo. I will be speaking at the inquiry tomorrow. I will tell the council what I have learned. I will recommend that the human students continue their training. Hope sparked in Yuna's chest. You will? Yes, Rolmoth said, but with conditions. Human students must be trained differently. Their pack bonds must be respected, not suppressed. And instructors must be educated about human threat perception and emotional responses. He turned back to the children one last time. I am not your enemy. I may not understand love, but I respect strength. And you have shown me a kind of strength I have never encountered before. Kiwan, the smallest and bravest, stepped forward. He held out his hand, the human gesture of peace and friendship. His hand shook slightly, but his voice was clear. Friends? He asked. Rolmoth looked at the tiny hand extended toward him. Slowly, carefully, he reached out with one of his 8 arms. His crystalline limb was 3 times the size of the child's entire arm. He touched Kiwan's hand with the gentlest pressure possible. Friends, Rolmoth agreed, and in that moment, a bridge was built between 2 species who could not have been more different. The Coalition Council chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched up so high it disappeared into darkness. Around the circular room, raised platforms held representatives from 40 different species. Each platform had translation equipment and display screens showing footage and data. At the center of the room, on the floor level, stood a small group of humans. Ambassador Jinwoo stood at the front, with Dr. Summon and Commander Yunwoo flanking him. Behind them, Yuna stood with the 10 children. The children wore their formal uniforms, pressed and clean. They held hands in a line, silent and nervous. Yuna had wanted to leave them in quarters, but Ambassador Jinwoo insisted they attend. The council needs to see them, he'd said. Not as a threat, but as what they are, children. The council leader, a being made of shifting shadows named Vector, spoke first. Its voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. We are gathered to address the incident in Training Room 7, human juveniles displayed. Aggression toward Instructor Vralmuth. The question before this council is whether humans should continue training in coalition facilities, or whether they pose too great a risk. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some voices sounded angry. Others confused? A few curious. Ambassador Jinwoo, Vector continued, present your case. Jinwoo stepped forward. His voice was calm but strong. Thank you, Council Leader. What happened in Training Room 7 was not an act of aggression. It was an act of protection rooted in fundamental human biology and culture. To understand it, you must first understand what humans are. He gestured to Dr. Soman, who activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the center of the room, showing human families, communities, and groups throughout history. Humans are pack animals, Dr. Soman began. We form small, intense social bonds characterized by loyalty, emotional attachment, and mutual protection. Unlike solitary species who raise young independently, or collective species who raise young communally, humans create family units and extended social networks. The display shifted to show human children playing, helping each other, protecting each other. Human young begin forming protective instincts as early as age 3, Dr. Soman continued. By age 6, they will instinctively defend pack members, even against superior threats. This is not learned behavior. This is genetic imperative. It is as natural to them as breathing. A council member from the Vexali delegation spoke up. But adults protect young. Young do not protect adults. This is universal law. Not for humans, Dr. Soman said. For humans, protection is reciprocal. Adults protect children, yes. But children also protect adults they've bonded with. They protect each other. They protect anyone they consider pack. To deny this instinct is to deny their humanity. Another council member, a floating orb of energy, pulsed with light as it spoke. This makes them unpredictable, dangerous. How can we train soldiers who act on emotion instead of logic? You already do, Commander Hyunwoo said, stepping forward. Every species in the coalition has soldiers who fight for their people. But why do they fight? For territory? For resources? For survival? Humans fight for all those reasons too. But we also fight for something else. We fight for each other. The holographic display changed again, showing human military units, medical teams, rescue workers, images of humans helping each other in disasters, wars, and crises. You see this as weakness, Hyunwoo continued. We see it as strength. A human soldier will never leave a wounded comrade behind. A human pilot will sacrifice themselves to save their crew. A human medic will run into fire to reach an injured person. Why? Because they're pack. And pack doesn't abandon pack. Vector's shadowy form shifted. Yet this same loyalty caused 10 juveniles to threaten an instructor, to disrupt training, to violate protocol. They didn't threaten him, Jinwoo said firmly. They warned him. There's a critical difference. They formed a defensive barrier. They made threat displays. But not one child touched Instructor Vralmuth. Not one child attacked. Even in the grip of protective instinct, they showed restraint. Because we knew Yuna wouldn't want us to hurt anyone. Jiho's voice suddenly rang out. Everyone turned to look at the 9-year-old boy. He was shaking, terrified of speaking in front of the council, but he stood straight and kept talking. We were scared, Jiho said. We thought the instructor was going to hurt Yuna, but she teaches us that violence is only okay to protect, never to attack. So we made ourselves big and scary to make him stop. We didn't want to hurt him. We just wanted him to leave her alone. Vector focused on the child. You were prepared to fight an opponent many times your size. Why? Because she's ours, Jiho said simply. And we're hers. That's what pack means. Other children's voices joined in, one after another. Pack means family. Minji said, pack means we protect each other, Doyan added. Pack means together we're strong. Yunji said, pack means nobody faces danger alone. Nari said quietly. Pack means I matter and they matter and we all matter, Kiwan said. Pack means love. Hannah finished. The council chamber fell completely silent. These small voices, speaking simple truths, had somehow reached across the vast differences in species and understanding. The door to the chamber opened. Instructor Vralmuth entered. His crystalline body reflected the chamber lights as he approached the center floor. The humans tensed, but they didn't move. Council leader, Vralmuth said. I request permission to speak. Granted, Victor said. Vralmuth moved to stand beside the humans. It was a strange sight, the massive Krellian next to the tiny humans. But there was something different in his posture now. Something respectful. I filed the initial complaint, Vralmuth began. I stated that the human juveniles displayed aggression and posed a danger. I was wrong. More murmurs spread through the chamber. I have spent considerable time reviewing the incident and learning about human culture, Vralmuth continued. What I interpreted as an attack was actually a defense. What I saw as insubordination was actually loyalty. The humans did not act out of malice. They acted out of love. He gestured to the 10 children. These young ones saw a pack member in distress and responded with coordinated defensive action. No training had taught them this. No orders were given. They simply knew what to do because their biology and culture has shaped them for exactly this response. You defend them? Asked the Vexali council member. After they threatened you? They did not threaten me, Vralmuth said. They warned me. And I am here to recommend that humans not only continue their training, but that we develop new protocols specifically designed around their pack bonding behaviors. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some council members argued loudly. Others conferred quietly. The noise built and built until Victor called for silence. Why? Victor asked Vralmuth directly. Why should we change our entire training structure for one species? Because, Vralmuth said, in 30 years of training coalition soldiers, I have never seen unit cohesion like what these 10 children displayed naturally. They moved as one. They communicated without words. They assessed threat, formed strategy, and executed defense in under 3 seconds. And they did it to protect one member of their group. He paused, then continued. Imagine squads of soldiers with that level of loyalty. Imagine units that will never abandon wounded members. Imagine teams where every individual knows that the others will stand with them against any threat. That is what humans offer the coalition. Dr. Soman jumped in. We've analyzed human military history. Units with strong social bonds have 30% higher survival rates and 50% better mission success rates than units without bonds. Humans instinctively create these bonds. We don't have to teach it. We just have to respect it. Ambassador Jinwoo addressed the council directly. You've spent this entire session trying to decide if humans are too dangerous to train. You're asking the wrong question. The question isn't whether we're dangerous. The question is whether you want that danger on your side or not. The chamber went quiet again. Humans love, Jinwoo said. We bond. We attach. We protect. Yes, this makes us emotional. Yes, this makes us sometimes act without pure logic, but it also makes us loyal beyond reason, brave beyond sense, and committed beyond death. Every species here fights for something. Humans fight for each other, and there is no more powerful motivation in the universe. Victor's shadowy form swirled and shifted. The council leader was thinking, processing, weighing options. Finally, Victor spoke. The council will vote. One by one, the platforms lit up. Green for approval. Red for rejection. Yellow for abstention. The lights flickered across the chamber like stars. Yuna held her breath. The children squeezed hands tighter. Ambassador Jinwoo's jaw clenched. When the final light appeared, Victor announced the results. The vote is decided. By a margin of 28 to 9, with 3 abstentions, the council rules in favor of the humans. Relief flooded through Yuna so powerfully she almost collapsed. The children broke their formal stance and hugged each other. Ambassador Jinwoo closed his eyes briefly in thanks. However, Victor continued, and everyone froze. This approval comes with conditions. New protocols will be established. Human cadets will be trained in pack units with assigned caretakers. Instructors will receive mandatory training in human psychology and threat perception. And a new position will be created,